All right, hello. Episode number 71. Come a long way. In this episode of the Holy Ruckus podcast, we're going to be chatting it up with our buddy Mike Tenney, who is an awesome, charismatic, energetic evangelizer for the Lord. He is a musician, retreat speaker, slash, obviously, he's the man, he's husband, he's a father. He's here with us today. He's a friend. And he's got a little podcast called Pop Culture Catechism that he's going to be talking to us about. And we're going to get into it. Folks, how you been? Has it been crazy? What's your mini feed look like today? Because we're going to talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of sanity with everything coming up with the pending elections and the results. How are you going to be, man? What's the aftermath going to look like? Let's prep now. All that and more. Father Pat and I and Mike Tenney on this week's episode of the Holy Ruckus.
Yo, what's good? Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a beautiful day. We're coming at you live in El Viernes on the eve of the Hallows Eve. We got my buddy Mike Tenney from the Holy Ruckus, from Mike Tenney Music Ministry / what else? Mike, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good. It's good to see you again. Good to see both of you. Good to be back on the Holy Ruckus podcast. I think this is my 4th time on the podcast.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. And I've also, written a bunch of stuff for the Holy Ruckus. So
that makes you a series regular.
Yeah, it does. Been in, there's a little
in Holy Ruckus like
say hi.
Years now. Like okay. I've been reading your stuff for years now, and I'm not even like 1 year old. I haven't celebrated my first birthday.
We'll get you a big cake. Yeah,
I know.
Gotta love that, that action man. But yeah, Father Pat's putting in work and he's been doing it. He's been with the game since Mike. I mean, since we started.
Yeah, since we started, I was one of the first bloggers for the Holy Ruckus. I was like the 2nd or 3rd blog that came out. So I would apologize for my daughter coming in, but I'm not going to apologize because I'm a stay-at-home dad, and that's part of my vocation. So
it's a beautiful testimony, man.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but my and I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like Holy Ruckus was one of the first places I got into kind of online ministry, doing some podcasts, doing some blogging, and that has totally like opened up some other opportunities for me. So like I love Holy Ruckus. It's my home, my people's. So.
Oh man, we love having you, brother.
Yeah, thanks back. Thanks for coming back.
And it couldn't have been a worse time to have you. but it's the right time to have you because, man, I don't know about you guys. I'm kind of, this fall is kind of like I have to catch up to it. Like I have to catch up to it, and if I'm not ready, I damn sure ain't ready to go vote. I haven't done that yet. I darn sure ain't ready to. I mean, we have a football season coming up. I coach football. Like darn sure ain't ready for that. COVID's still rampaging through. We're going through all these safety precautions. We got a newborn in the house. Kids going crazy. I just got here. Like I don't know. Like, and so to have you, Mike. I mean, honestly, like as someone that's doing the damn thing, as a father, and as an advisor, it's amazing. It's a great witness. I would make the little critical jokes of like he's Mr. Mom in it, but no, that'd be disrespect. That'd be falling short because you honestly it's great, guys. I've known Mike for so Mike, and I've told you this. When I was in high school, and I don't mean to date you or anything.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But my man Mike was, I think he was in college doing music ministry. And when I was in high school, a junior, senior in high school, I just remember hearing you pray, man. And like, I mean that like in evangelization, like you were praying these songs and it really stuck with me back then in high school. I was like, I hear the Jesus music and it's awesome. It's cool, but that's where it stays. Like when I heard you really get down on them strings and really, pluck those chords and sing your heart out to the Lord in front of the Blessed Sacrament, it really was like resonated with me. And I ended up doing the same thing and following in those footsteps. And you got me, a job at where I am now at St. Vincent Pallotti High School. Shout out Laurel, Maryland. And, and that's where I've been most of my days, every day with football. Been good. But you're on to awesome things. Mike, tell us a little bit what you're up to now. What's going on?
Yeah, so I was teaching at Pilates for 14 years and I loved it. And who knows, maybe I'll go back someday. But my wife and I discerned amidst COVID that I would do the stay-at-home dad thing. We've been thinking about this for a while, and just things seemed right. And so she's working. She's a pediatric nurse practitioner. She's super smart and hard. She's awesome. She little kids come in where they busted open their heads, and she staples them up, and that's what she does. She's awesome. So we have 2 young kids. We have a daughter named Avila, who's 4, and a son named John Paul, who is about 18 months old. And we discerned it in prayer over a number of months. And I got to tell you, it's been so good for our home life. And it's been a bit of a leap of faith, financially and all sorts of other things. I've been teaching for a long time and I really like teaching. And like I said, I'll probably go back to teaching at some point, but, so it took a lot for us to kind of step out in faith, but God has totally rewarded us. And, one income is, I don't have to tell you, Josh, you're doing the same thing. One income is hard and it requires some sacrifices, but totally worth it. Totally worth it. Yeah. And then the idea was it would, free me up to do more traveling and speaking and music ministry. That's kind of blown up for me over the past few years. Not so much now because of COVID, but it's given me the opportunity to I got an invitation from Awaken Catholic, which is a new Catholic nonprofit, which has probably about 10 shows running on YouTube and podcast. And they asked me to start up a show. So I have a show called Pop Culture Catechism that comes out every 2 weeks. I record in batches. Their studio's in Ohio. So I go to Ohio every 3 or 4 months and record 10 episodes or 12 episodes. And I'm also on their show called The Men's Show, semi regularly. And it's been great. On Pop Culture Catechism, we talk about mostly music, but also we got some episodes coming up on TV shows and movies and video games, even, where we just kind of talk about the good, the true, and the beautiful in those things, and we talk about them through the eyes of faith. So I'm really excited. I loved it. I've gotten great feedback so far, and I'm jazzed up about it. It's exciting. So
that's what's up. That's what's up. Before I go any further, Father Pat, how are you?
Hi, I'm about the same. I'm holding it down. I'm doing my thing. I am curious though, because you're out of the the institutional brick and mortar teaching situation, but still the first teacher of your children, the domestic church.
Absolutely.
What would you say that you real talk? What do you miss? What's something that you've noticed, I really enjoy doing that, and there's not as much of it in my, and what is far and away you're relieved to, or at least sufficiently, if you don't want to be too real.
No. Absolutely. I miss the students and I miss my colleagues. Josh will tell you the team that we had, especially in the religion department, but the whole school. I mean, some of my best friends, they're just amazing people. My brother is the assistant principal there. So, and my niece is a sophomore there. I got to teach her last year as a freshman. So there's just such a cool community and family at that school. I really miss that. Just the people, the students, and the
good answer,
and the faculty. What I do not miss at all is just the stress of being a teacher, especially amidst COVID. And there's been so many times I've just looked at my wife the past few months and been like, "I'm so glad I'm not teaching right now." I don't miss grading at all.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely don't miss grading. So
good answers. Well played. Well done.
Man, but school really does miss you, and I'm seeing your awesome drip, your coordination with your outfits. He was always a snazzy dresser, and your wool ties. You know what I'm talking about. So
those are my grandpa's ties.
There you go. Yeah,
those wool ties. Yeah.
Awesome, man. So let's get into it, dude. This one is kind of, sorry, folks, we don't really have an agenda necessarily. We don't have a
it's more of a round table.
I'm glad Mike is just here. We're just wallpaper. But honestly, like we wanted to talk current of what's going on right now and not tell you how to vote because that's not what we do.
Mm-mm.
I would name them some names, but no, but like I'm not gonna tell you guys like that's not what I'm called to do. Like I would tell you, I would give you the same old song and dance, which is in the church. Like we ask that you vote with an informed conscience, right? And you look at what the church teaches.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the fact that it doesn't fit in any other box or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and you move off that. I don't know, but I mean, let's start there. I mean, here we are, just days away from election day. I mean, people have already
Yeah,
their stuff. Have you guys voted already? Am I
0 hour.
What's up?
I voted. Yeah, we did the mail-in thing. So we got our ballots in the mail, and then we dropped them off at like the elementary school down the street, just in the box. So
There you go.
I did the early voting thing. I went this past Tuesday midday. It was real simple. The election judges were awesome. Shout out to all the volunteers who are kind of putting it on the line. You know, just definitely being safe, keeping us safe. It was smooth. It was like easy peasy lemon squeezy. I was in and out 15, 20 minutes. It was great. Yeah, I was talking about this very thing with like some of my brother priests, and one of the very obvious like challenges and difficulties is that most of us can't even like discern correctly or like automatically infer from like what somebody votes for, like even what that vote means, you know, like what, and let me explain a little bit. Like the act of voting, the church tells us is like a civic duty, a privilege, that comes with like a moral imperative to do it in a moral way, you know, to act as human beings, like to make it a fully human act. Like we have to use our rationality. Like we can't just, you know, randomly select candidates or, you know, write in Mickey Mouse for every single one of them. Although maybe Mickey Mouse like snuck in on like some of the write-ins. I don't know, like, you know, real talk. But you can like some people will be choosing by their vote, by the act of voting, to like limit evil, you know, which is always a legitimate choice. Some people will be making a resounding endorsement of their guy or their gal, you know, however it turns out. And you just don't know, like just the same thing, different, you know, we're all making the same, like, you know, action as far as casting a ballot, but some of us may be like doing so in kind of like a protest way, like voting for a third party candidate, which is you know, a legitimate option. I get very frustrated with like the rhetoric that says like it's the only viable choice is between like, you know, this bifurcated decision, like these two options or whatever. That seems to me foolhardy. It's really hard for Catholics to kind of to maneuver this, because I'll speak for myself. I think a lot of people want to be just kind of led and told like what to do. This is almost entirely like emphasized as a like a personally informed like matter of conscience.
yeah.
And so we're not just like following randomly by sheep, but you know, what kind of conversations are you guys having around this election, around ballot casting and like, you know, concerns for the end of the world come November 4th?
Well, you guys know, and anyone who's friends with me on Facebook knows, I like to start stuff and try to have conversations with people that are productive. And I totally agree with what you said, Father Pat, that I totally have respect for people who have discerned well, and like if you have thought about it and prayed about it and researched, and your conscience tells you like the right thing for me to do is to vote for Trump or to vote for Biden or to vote third party, or even to withhold my vote as a, you know, I'll vote, but I just won't write in for president. Like that sends a message as well. And they see that ballots are cast, but no one's written in as president. Like, I think those could be discerned by people of goodwill and of reasonable intelligence. I've come to my decision in what I've done, and I have some questions for the people that think otherwise, and I think I'm right and I think they're wrong, but I also recognize that other people of reasonable intelligence and goodwill can come to different decisions. I'm not so closed-minded that I think I'm the only one that can figure it out. And I think it's beautiful that our church gives us that freedom. You know, it's funny, the Catholic Church has kind of a reputation for being like very, oppressively dogmatic in telling you every little thing to do. And I think sometimes people are surprised that in some cases the church is like, no, we give you general principles from which to go by, and then we trust you to be informed and make the choice. And the other thing I find frustrating, exactly what you said, Father Pat, is that people say, "Oh, well, unless you vote that way, well, that's a cop out, or that's cheap, or you're throwing your vote away, or if you vote this way, that's really a vote for Trump, or it's really a vote for Biden, or it's really a vote for this," and it's
exactly.
Yeah, it's another thing that's really obnoxious is when people when they hear voting your conscience, they say, "Oh, well, that's well, I'm glad you have the privilege to vote your conscience," or something like that, as if voting your conscience is just to like make yourself feel better or to assuage your feelings. And I think what that reveals is a deep misunderstanding of what conscience is. And people think conscience is just like this gut feeling that you get that tells you that's naughty and that's good, and that's part of it. Like your gut should be part of the conversation, but it's your whole thought process. The church describes it as a process of conscience that you discern and you think and you pray and you research, and all of that is conscience. It's not just like this feeling that I get and like, oh, I feel rosy about voting for this person. Because I don't think I think if you feel totally rosy about who you voted for, like I think maybe you have some more discerning to do in this election. I think if it's an easy decision for you,
right?
Maybe you need to discern a little bit more.
There's too many moving parts. There's a lot to like weigh in and consider. But you raise an interesting point, I think, because like this is definitely one of those like for our church anyway, Catholic little C moments. Like it's such a universal church with lots and lots of different perspectives, lots and lots of different populations, for whom like different issues resound more loudly. Like certain issues, depending on which community of Catholics you're talking to, may matter way more than the next one, the one next door that worship in the same church, And I guess like that flies in the face of, and you alluded to this, like the historical narrative there's been plenty of examples of like anti-Catholic sentiment in this country of like that we're papists and that we're all just going to follow Rome, and like the Pope is going to tell us like exactly how to vote, and we're going to just follow like, whoever's sitting on the throne of Peter, the chair of Peter, when in fact, like that is hardly true. Like there are definitely some branches of like Christianity that like vote as a block, and and you can identify like that Christian right, or that specific vote. But the Catholics, like we're the ones that kind of cover the whole spectrum, a whole multiplicity of views.
Yes, and that idea of voting as a block, it doesn't just like almost everybody votes as a block. It just depends on who they decide to pick as their block. And this is something I talk about a lot when I give talks, is that so much of what you believe based on who you trust around you. Like we all like, and psychologically, this is backed up with research, but so much of what we decide in our brain, when we get new information, we decide, is it true or not? A lot of times we judge things less harshly that we hear from people we trust. And if it could be the same information coming from somebody that we don't trust, and all of a sudden we have this filter, is like, is that really true? Is that really, and it takes a lot of self-awareness and self examination to break through that. I always talk about this Jimmy Kimmel sketch during the last election where he went to a Hillary rally and with a stack of Donald Trump quotes and asked people if they agreed with them, but said that Hillary said them. And all of them were like, yes, I love that quote on immigration. I love that quote on women. And it's like, ridiculous stuff that Trump says. And they're all like, yeah, I love it, just because they put Hillary's name on it. And they did the same thing. He went to a Trump rally with all these Hillary quotes and ascribed them to Trump, and people are like, yes, I love that. And it's so many people, they just believe based on what the other people they associate with believe. And I think one of the things I love about being Catholic is it gives us a better way to discern than the American political polarity of just either you're left or you're right. And there's so much in Catholicism that is like, no, we're both, like Black lives, unborn lives. Yeah. Like
Amen.
both of those, immigration, religious liberty, like, yeah,
Right.
like these are all things that we care about.
Sure.
And within that large, just, you know, there's lots of different ways of approaching those issues and trying to solve them.
I guess what it comes down to it, like I have noticed on my own, like my own like ballot, my own voting pattern sometimes like does not make sense. It looks like I might be randomly filling it in because like I kind of like, you know, mix and match, you know, based off of what I can find about a person's moral character and a person's like own convictions, but yeah, and just, you know, certainly like policy decisions and like where they stand on things. But I tell people, at least from where my privileged seat, which at times, you know, is to lead as shepherd and to speak, you know, preach the homily at mass, at our worship together, I warn against anything at all that divides the heart, you know, against one's neighbor. That's the vote that I would strongly discourage. Although it does make sense to limit evil. We covered that. I don't encourage for the sake of my flock, you know, and the sake of their spiritual health, people to like vote out of anger, you know, to cast a vote of like angry indictment, you know, that quickly devolves into like the crowd, you know, who caught the woman in adultery. Like, how do we not avoid? How do we not become like a mob of like angry people under that like rubric of voting? So I strongly caution against that mentality. Like, wherever possible, vote for something and vote with, you know, your conscience, like you said, as an instantiation of the entire person, not just not my gut, not my emotions, but my rationality, my experience, the people I trust, my willingness to listen, you know, all of it. And I think that's pretty much where the church resides as well.
Yeah, and I like how you said that is the people you trust are a part of it, and your anger can be a part of it. Like, there's some things I'm angry about in this election, but you can't let any one of those things like hold sway. Like, they're all part of the equation.
Sure.
And again, the idea of not dividing from your fellow citizens, like there's so much us them. There's so much us them, and so many things. You know, people post online like they think this, and how hypocritical are they? And I'm like, who's they? Do you actually know a person who thinks this, or is this just a boogeyman out there who you think, you know, like there's this imaginary them? And you know, people have I see people posting things about, you know, is Trump going to commit to a peaceful transition of power if he loses? And then I saw some people on the other side say, oh, well, Hillary said this thing that Biden shouldn't concede. Yeah, Biden shouldn't concede no matter what. And so they're both there's accusations on both sides that there's not going to be this. They're not going to concede to a peaceful transition, or they're not going to concede to the election results. And I was like, what I want to know is, are you going to commit to a peaceful transition? Like, is my neighbor, are you going to be peaceful if the person you don't want to win loses? Like, are you going to be violent? Are you going to be hateful? Or are you going to accept it? Because that's how our country is different from so many other countries around the world. Is we accept it and we move on, even if we don't like it. And that's the wisdom of George Washington stepping down on a peaceful transition of power, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, great precedent.
I always thought that was so funny. Like that question, like, well, one, what do you expect Trump to say? Like, oh, we'll talk like a loser, you know? But, and you know, like as someone that coaches a team, like, I tell my guys, like, hey, if we lose, how you gonna feel? We ain't gonna lose, you know, of course.
Right.
I love how you've just flipped it back to us. Like, that's true. Like, as our neighbor, like, how am I going to be with the aftermath? And that's kind of where I want this conversation to go. Like, folks that are watching, right, how do you feel about the week ahead for the country? And what are you gonna do if your knight in shining armor, God bless us, right, doesn't win? Like your political savior, and like where's your stock in? Like where are all your where are you putting all your ducats, right?
Preach.
Yeah.
And it's
Preach.
Center.
and that's the thing, and it's funny because Mike, I mean, you know this. I teach Mission of Jesus. I teach a Christology course, and it was always. And right now we're looking at the world of Jesus, right? And I'm bringing it back to the faith. And one of the things is I have to show them, or the students, I have to share with them what kind of Messiah that people were looking for, right? And they wanted, and why they were so upset at Jesus. Because sometimes when we look back at Jesus, we look at it from a 2020 lens, right? Like it's right in front of them. They didn't listen to the prophets. They didn't listen to this. They didn't listen to this. Like it's so obvious. It's Jesus is the Messiah. But it's like, no, hold back. Because if you look at what the different sects of Judaism were expecting and wanting out of their savior, it was something that was going to put them back on top politically, back on top, socially, right? Build a kingdom. And so I bring that back to us here in 2020. It's like, look, I'm going to sleep just fine. Like honestly, me, like, and maybe, and yes, you'll say that, well, that's your privilege. That's your privilege. Like, yeah, but like, I'm going to work hard. Like that was so important to me, like to be about my local government too. And like on a macro level, like what can be done, but like on a micro level, like what can I do to influence, to use my little platforms, my 500 people, my 1,000, my school to kind of, because I remember 2016, dude. I remember 2016, and I just remember it took us a few minutes, like for teachers to want to teach again, because like they were shook, completely shook, crying. And I'm not here saying like, come on now, like it's game time. We gotta go to work. Like, but yeah, we still gotta go to work the next day. We still gotta love the next day.
Yeah.
So interesting. I don't know, like for you guys, like, do you remember what it was like for you guys in 2016? And how does that prime you for what's ahead this week? What do you got?
Oh, wow.
Well, I just remember, some of my friends who I disagree with politically on a lot of things, kind of reaching out to me and being like, how did this happen? And, like I tend to lean more towards the conservative side, although I did not vote for Trump, but I tend to be more conservative.
I hear you. I take all my little online quizzes and keep saying liberal. And I'm like,
yeah.
Come on, Mike. Go ahead, keep going.
But so some of my more liberal friends reached out to me and was just like, how come? And one particular friend of mine from college who was a roommate for a while, and he said, like, how come we get along and like we can talk about this stuff? And like, anyway, I had some really good conversations. And I don't know, maybe they felt like they could talk to me because I didn't vote for Trump. They felt like I was safe. They knew that I wasn't happy about Trump. I don't know what would have made me happy in that election, but so I've been thinking is I need to try to reach out to some people no matter what happens. And maybe I need to think about who I need to reach out to, because you can't reach out to everybody, but that's what I'm trying to think of, is how can I make those personal connections? Because we live in this internet world, and especially right now during COVID, we're so disconnected. And we have very shallow relationships in terms of we can look online and see what hundreds or maybe thousands of our friends or followers are kind of doing, but we're not having very many personal interactions. And so I feel like we need that connection more than ever right now. And no matter which ways this goes, half the country is going to be feeling kind of alienated and maybe hopeless in some ways. And so I feel like there's going to be some people I need to reach out to and just talk to, and try to form those real relationships.
Go ahead, Father Pat.
4 years ago, I distinctly remember where I was because
you were youth minister, weren't you?
No, I was in seminary by then, and I had two collaborators, a priest who was studying at Catholic University and a classmate of mine. We became the organizers of the election night party, And so we offered like different election themed activities.
Party.
Yeah, no, we to like watch the results all together. And we're a pretty like eclectic bunch of a house. Like by no means was my seminary monolithic in any way, shape, or form. Although we definitely had like some strong characters, like strongly opinionated men, who were still charitable to one another. I like to think we were still charitable, and so like we offered things like guess the electoral map competition. People could submit their guesses on how it would turn out. That night, we only had 2 people who even predicted that Trump would win, because most everybody else in the house believed the polling data. And it was a really surprising night, I remember, because we had this whole bingo game set up that, like, following what we had done during the debates, we had put word bingo, basically like catchphrase, like buzzwords from the debates, like in a bingo format. And it was like really popular for the house. We never got to the game because when the results started pouring in, like it was so shocking, and it was so. But here's what I would say, based off of the experience of like where we were the next day, I will strongly encourage, a word of positive, like encouragement, I guess, a shot in the arm, from, good old Beardy, your father Beardy here, that we really try not to traffic in what ifs in our spiritual lives, like, or our psychological lives for that matter. Good like psychological health and spiritual health, like, tries to grasp and come to grips with like the eternal now, the fact that like God comes down to us, he's incarnate in our lives in these moments that we're like right here where we are, right where we're at, however we're at, and not to like give like ourselves over to the doomsday scenarios of like, well, then this is absolutely going to happen. This is, like, I'm not suggesting that we delude ourselves, like that we put blinders on and think like, everything's just gonna be normal. It's all gonna be like really, really like the same or anything. Like, yeah, change may come, change does happen, but man, those what ifs, like they really do a number on people. And I think that's what some of the tears that I remember from 2016 were about. It was like the fear of the what ifs. But I strongly encourage people to traffic in the what's happening right now. Like, that's why, Mike, your word about like, well, what do I do? What do I do? Like, it's kind of the best. That's like the best and most succinct. We got to clip that, man, because like that's what it comes down to.
Thank you.
Pow, pow, pow.
Next and I think we kind of, you were hitting on this, Josh and Father Pat as well, is we need a reminder that our real hope in the real Messiah is not anybody we elect. Even if you look at the slogans, like Barack Obama's slogan was hope, and Donald Trump's is based on greatness, and Joe Biden's, I think, is something like unite, or so it's unity, and they're almost in some ways like they're theological themes. Like there's faith, hope, and love. There's one holy Catholic and apostolic church. Like we want to be one, and Joe Biden wants to unite. Like there's these glimpses of things that we find in our faith that are these virtues that they're trying to cling on to and say, yes, this is what I'm going to be about. And I think we need to remember that that's a real unity doesn't come from Joe Biden. Our real hope does not come from Barack Obama. Our real greatness does not come from Donald Trump. There's a singer-songwriter I follow named Derek Webb, and he has a great song where he says, it's called A King and a Kingdom. And he says, my first allegiance is not to a flag or to a party. My first allegiance is to a king and a kingdom. Like when it comes down to us as Christians, we're monarchs. We're monarchists in some sense, like our king is Jesus, and he's a different sort of king. His kingdom is not of this world, and we need to live. We're supposed to live a different sort of kingdom right now.
Yeah,
we're supposed to be already living the kingdom come on earth that loves the neighbor as the self, that loves the enemy as oneself. And so I think And that's far more important than a vote. As important as voting is, and it's your civil obligation, yes, far more important is how you love your wife, your kids, your parents, your teachers, your students, your fellow students if you're a student. That is, like, I don't want to say infinitely more important than voting, but that is far more important. It's a far impotent. I just made a word. I combined important and potent, but it's both more important and more potent. It's impotent. Absolutely. And
let me
that's far more important.
Let me hop on that real quick, like, because that's what I'm saying is, like, I'll put my vote, I cast it, I walk away. There's nothing I can really do at that point, right? I mean, I don't know, like, so what can I do? I can love my neighbor and I can reach out, right? I'm not gonna have a winner's face at all. I based on my candidate, this person's not gonna win, you know. And that's fine. Like, it doesn't say on the ballot, like, who do you think is gonna win? You know, like, pony up and put your name down for the winner. Like, that's not what it's asking. It's asking, who do you think is gonna make a great president? Like, I mean, I think, right? So it's like, all right, so then I'll put Yeezy. You know, like, no, he didn't get his stuff together in time. But next time, Yeezy. Next time, Kanye. Come on now. We need that. We need another dropout before you start running for president. That's on the real. But like, let me just say, like, all I can do is, like, I gotta love the people that God has surrounded me with. I gotta, console my friends if they're down because they didn't get the result they wanted. I gotta point to Christ. I gotta, even if they're not Christian, just show support. Like, those virtues, they've been piggybacked off of these political parties, but we believe that they belong in every one of us. Every one of us has the ability to share faith, hope, and love. We need to not just have that just when we want a bumper sticker for Biden or Harris or for Trump and what's his name. And, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's got to be something that we live. And how do you get that? By, at least for me as a Christian, like, I'm trying to lock in for whatever the result is in prayer and, like, just sit with it. Cause I'm like, it is scary, but on a micro level, like on a small level, I just gotta love the people around me, huddle up and just keep being, just keep being present to suffering. And speak up when you see the injustices and all that, because that's not because that stuff didn't come out of nowhere. Like, racism wasn't around till Trump got here. No, like that was it will be here. Unfortunately, it'll be here until the Lord comes home. Like, how do you address that? And if that president isn't gonna do it, then vote next time and get him out of there, get whoever out of there. But I gotta still do my thing for my community. You know, I still gotta ride out for where God has placed me.
So I really like what you were saying, and what it made me think of is, one of the key tenets of Catholic social teaching. One is solidarity, and one is subsidiarity. And the third big one that John Paul II talks about is dignity of the human person. But I was specifically thinking of solidarity and subsidiarity is, I guess all three. So in your elections, like, you got to treat one another with dignity after all this is over. Like, don't hate on one another and speak poorly to one another. Like, there's all throughout the scriptures, the way we use our words is, like, very, like, through the Proverbs. St. Paul talks about it, Ephesians 4:29. Don't let impure things come out of your mouth. Jesus talks about it, like, you have heard it, not that you shall not kill, but I say don't even kill with your words or you'll be liable to judgment.
Jesus, don't police my conversations.
So you got to be careful with your words and the way to talk to people. So respect their human dignity. 2, solidarity. Like, you got to like live with people as your brothers and sisters, like, treat them as one, like you are solid with them. And 3, subsidiarity is the idea that things generally work best on the more local level. So voting for the president, that is something, like, very far away in terms of how big your effect is. And that's why I was saying it's much more effective for things happening at the local level and how you treat people. So, like, donate to the charities, like, find a pro-life pregnancy center that you can donate to or volunteer for or drop off clothes to or something like that. Or, something you feel passionate about. There's tons of, our church does lots of great work with immigrants. There's so many, even if it's not specifically a charity through the Catholic Church, like, you can donate your time, treasure, and talent to that. And I would suggest maybe if you voted for a candidate because pretty much whoever you vote for, if you vote for one of the two major candidates, there's some things that are more in line with Catholic teaching and some things that are definitely not much in line with Catholic teaching. So maybe if you voted for Joe Biden, maybe you should be donating to a pregnancy center. Maybe if you voted for Donald Trump, like there's something on the other side that you can be finding to
offset the evil.
Yeah. So like that's because you can make a greater impact there than with your vote, by investing in those things. So I don't know. I
would add one more plug. You kind of said this already, but
it's that homily, Father Pat.
Lest anybody accuse Holy Ruckus of not encouraging people the right way. Like do let your voice be heard, especially for those who have that privilege. Because even when you get fed up, like with national races or whatever, local politics will affect your life. Like that principle of subsidiarity, that will affect you a lot more quickly than anything else. So like it's a little trickier, a little harder to like get invested with like your circuit court judges and your school board elections. But like that's the stuff that we have to go to the polls to like weigh in on those things as well. Like that really matters. Like some of these ballot measures, those are going to have a much more immediate impact on like who sits in the West Wing.
At the local level, I always look at these like at the local level, at the state and all this, and I'm looking, I'm like, all right, I gotta go find them. Like I'm like, let me see their Twitter. Let me see, like I gotta go. They don't have a Twitter. Like they don't have a website. Like their website looks like from the 90s. Like what's going on? Like so, I'm like, when you treasure, if you have a candidate like you want to ride for, like maybe email them, hit them up, and say, hey, let me do this for you. Come on, throw me some money, but or for free, pro bono. Like, you gotta do something. Because I mean, we got some comments here, and one of them was the third party guy, Brian Carroll, right? I like. I'm not gonna say too much. I'm not gonna, give him much away. Okay, great, Brian Carroll, you are a ghost. You are a ghost on social media, my man. Where's your team at? I see Mike over here. Like, run your social media page, player. We need, like, if he's so great, then there needs to be a village behind him getting out his message.
Working on it. Working on the village. If you don't know who Brian Carroll is, he's the presidential candidate for the American Solidarity Party. It's like a Christian Democrat party. So
like
that's what I voted for.
Go for it. Like that's cool. Like I've been on the Brian Carroll like tip for a while, like in terms of like who is he? I know it. But he's not doing himself any favor. I don't see it. But anyway, let's.
Yeah, the party has a ways to go. But
yes. Step your
thanks,
game
Mike
up.
McHugh.
Step your game up. Thanks, Mike McHugh. And then Mike McHugh with the randoms. Did your hometowns have mischief night growing up, or was it just in Philly? We couldn't go out on the 30th for being in fear of beaten up and egged.
Oh wow, really? Yet another reason why Philadelphia is one of the strangest places in these United States. I don't recall anything like that in Montgomery County. I grew up in Rockville.
Like, is in relation to Halloween or in relation to like election night? Like on the
no, it was in relation to Halloween. I've heard of people doing mischief, like egging houses and stuff, but it was like never dangerous to go out.
Well, Mike, I can say this now because I am in the position I am now, but I did participate in some kind of tomfoolery, like, but I was 12, but I'm a grown man, Mike. So maybe it's just you.
I could share a story. I'd have to be like a little careful to make sure I don't blow somebody's spot up, but this was not Philadelphia or Rockville or Southern Maryland, Mike. I'm not from. I simp so hard for Southern Maryland, especially when Mike's around. But I'm not technically from there. And but shout out to the county all the same. Love you, heart you hard, St. Mary's. When I was up in New York, I was studying in New York in Yonkers. I was living at Dunwoody, and we would commute. Father Mario Mahano and I, Father Mike Paris. We would go to. We went to St. John's University over the bridge in Queens, but a bunch of guys were at Fordham down the road in the Bronx. on Halloween night. I don't think it was like the 30th. I don't think it was like mischief night or whatever the hell you called it, uh, like shenanigans night. like we didn't have we didn't have that, but there were kids, neighborhood kids, egging the seminary on All Hallows Eve, and so like a couple of our guys like got really defensive, and they were like, "Yo, we're gonna go teach these youngsters like what's for," and like it did not go well for the seminarians. We basically got a talking to for like poorly repping our seminary and trying to start something, whatever, when we were totally outnumbered by these like these young hooligans, but I remember that night distinctly, and lest anyone ask or accuse me of such, I was an absolute saint, guys. I was my hands were totally clean. I was not involved. I stayed out of it. It was like the bizarre world happened one night of the year, and I said, no, I think I'm gonna stay in and do my homework.
It was crazy. No, but I do resonate with. I mean, one time we were out. I mean, we could jump for candy. I did it. My cousin did. So it's pretty crazy. So watch out. And then he says, Mike McHugh, man, hubcaps and doorknobs got stole that night.
Wow.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached a little bit more than halfway. Let's pay some bills. Let's do some things here. We'll be back in a moment. In World Youth Day in Rio, Pope Francis asked for the church to go out and to evangelize. Well, at the Holy Ruckus, we're trying to do that. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you are moved to give, please do so at patreon.com/theholyruckus_give. Come on, Mike, show me that money. Now,
Josh, something I was going to say before, but I forgot, is that really, if you're really disturbed at the end of this election and you really want peace in your heart, Jesus just told me, and Mary too, she's right there, that if you give a gift to Patreon, to the Holy Ruckus, that they will give you the gift of inner peace. So, and that's not heresy at all. Not at all.
I have a revelation, dog. Let's go.
We're selling it for the low price of Patreon subscription.
You already know where to go. Patreon.com. Become a member here. Awesome.
Can we still sell indulgences? Can we still do that?
Oh, yeah. No.
I'm totally kidding. In case anybody, I'm not kidding that you should give, but I am.
Check it out. See what kind of rewards we give. The more you give, the more you. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking about it.
I'm not getting invited back.
All right, here we go. Yes, let's go. So real quick hitters, man. Quick hitters. This is sleep on it or preach on it, but I doubt we're gonna sleep on much of anything. How this works is if you hear a topic that you're like, oh, we gotta talk about this, and we're gonna just go around and we can say, I'm gonna sleep on it, I'm gonna pass it off to you, or we can preach on it and I want to say something about it. So let's talk about it. First things first, in Nice, France, the attacks happened. Extremists attacked the church, and it's going around. And even in Latin America, the attacks on the church, on these structures, on the holy places, but also people are dying. 2 beheadings, I believe. Sleep on it, preach on it. Anything, Father Pat? What do you think?
Gosh, in one sense, I sleep on the sensationalism that sometimes comes with this, like these headlines, when we want to when it's used or co-opted to like stir up controversy or again, like I'm not like we're not Quakers, you know, we're not like radical pacifists per se. Although we do live, here's what I'll preach on. Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek," you know, and this modern day martyrdom is nothing new. Like the last century was the one that gave us the most saints. So, like, I guess to some extent, you know, although Francis is kind of own animal, like of, you know, intercultural mixing. Yeah, we should all be prepared, for you neither know the day nor the hour, you know, but what will be demanded of you.
I'm gonna sleep on it just because I can't say it any better than Pat, and we got to keep it moving. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, so I haven't heard a whole lot about this, but I did hear, and I've been thinking a lot just with, you know, people talking about, you know, what happens if our country like totally falls apart, and there's, you know, been some violence and you know, some violent things that have happened this year, and I've been thinking about, like, you know, there is in Catholic teaching, like, you have a right to self-defense, and that is justified, but yet we also have this great prophetic witness of the martyrs and nonviolence, of course, from Jesus, and then martyrs down through the centuries. And I wonder, like, yes, I have a wife and kids, but there were martyrs who had wives and kids back in the day. And like, what would I do in that moment? It's like that 21 Pilots song, Ride. Like, metaphorically, I'm the man, but literally, I don't know what I'd do, and I don't know what I'd do in that situation. But I just pray that in the moment, God will give me the grace to do the right thing and know whether, like, is this a moment to fight back, or is this a moment to lay down my life? And or maybe even fighting back is a way of laying down my life on protecting other people. So I just pray for the grace. You know, Jesus says, you know, you will be brought before courts and dragged before magistrates, but don't worry about what you'll have to say. Like, the Holy Spirit will tell you what to say. And I just trust that in faith that if I'm put in that situation, the Lord will, please God, like, just inspire me to do what is the right and holy thing, and the what is right. So yeah.
There you go. I got one. So, Mike, you lead a podcast called Pop Culture Catechism, and it's been making a ruckus, even though it's not with the Holy Ruckus, but it's okay. And you do talk about 21 Pilots, and that's amazing. I love that you talk about Linkin Park. So I've been glued in. What do you say though about your first episode, where you have gone in and maybe I'm getting this wrong, and you've gone in a little defense on the song by Cardi B, WAP.
Oh, wow.
WAP, yeah. Our first episode is on WAP. Yeah.
Right.
Hot take.
So and now, of course, we're, you know, the redeemable, the persons. I get that. I get the theology of that, the dignity of the person. I get it. And praying for them and all that conversion. Is the song redeemable though? Like, really though? Was the song redeemable? What did you find as redeemable? Give them a little quick little bit. Do you want to sleep on this, or do you want to actually preach on it?
Oh, no, you know I'm preaching on this. So basically,
I'm so cold asleep.
We are losing subscribers right now.
You don't want to talk about WAP, Father Pat? Okay.
I have nothing to say.
Okay, there we go.
I'm sleeping on it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, we had an NFP instructor from the Couple for Couple League on. She was pregnant. She just had her baby since then, and we had a woman and a man on, and then me. So we had a diverse panel, and we talked about the good and the bad, and we tried to look at it from a positive as point of view as we could, because there had been so much negative, especially from Catholic and Christian perspectives. Is we wanted to show, well, what is the gold in there, what is good. And St. John Paul II said about pornography that the problem with pornography is not that it shows too much of the person, but that it shows too little of the person. And so that is kind of the perspective we took, is like, well, why is this song so popular? Why is it getting so much attention? Why would someone make a song like this? Like, what are they getting at, and what does it fall short of, and what is it ultimately pointing to? And so we talked about that, and I wouldn't say it was a defense of the song. I think it's we just tried to look at it with the eyes of Christ, you know, in the same ways that Christ met with sinners and ate with them, in the same way that we're all sinners. I think we just tried to really not let the obvious flaws obscure the person, you know. Wow. and the good lessons there. So
you're trying to draw light and try to put light on it, right?
Yeah.
Thinking something that on its head, on its surface, it's like, it is a dark thing, right?
Yeah.
Let's shine Christ's light on it.
Amen.
And let's try to find some way where we can, we have to be in the world and be able to find out and tease out and talk about where it falls short. And obviously that is what sin is missing the mark and falling short. And so I admire the attempt. I wouldn't do it for my first episode.
Well, and this is kind of a very Catholic worldview, is that we're not, there was a bunch of heresies in the early church that were like, we're this secret separate group. We're not, Gnosticism and Manichaeism, where it's like, all that stuff is bad and it's just us within these walls, and we're like fortressed and we're good and the rest of the world is like evil. And like, that's not authentic Catholicism. Like authentic, we don't live in a dualist world. We don't believe that there's like equal powers of yin and yang, evil and good out there, and something's either totally good or totally bad.
Body bad.
We believe that world and the existence is fundamentally good. And yes, it's been twisted and fallen and corrupted, but at its root, the devil doesn't have his own clay. He cannot create anything that is good. That is bad is just good that's been twisted, and we want to try to untwist it. We want to uncrumple it, and that's what we're trying to do.
Bet. All right, sleep on it, preach on it. Here we go. It is Halloween. I grew up in a Latino household, right? We did it, but it was kind of always in spite of what my grandma wanted and really believed. She was cool with it so long as we went to mass the night before and really, holy watered up. And we didn't dress up as ghouls and goblins and crazy things. But in many parts of Latin America, it's almost like we haven't talked openly about the origins of Halloween. Preach on it, sleep on it, the origins of Halloween being Catholic, real quick.
Preach on it, if for nothing else than to bump like some of like Catholic Answers material. Like I'm a big fan of Jimmy Akin. Like he does like deep dives on like the historical origins of things like All Hallows Eve. Yeah, I mean, plug for the Sunday's feast. Like it happens to coincide with our Sunday liturgy this coming week. That All Hallows Eve is in honor of the saints, which is a celebration of not only those whose like names are in canonized, that the church has promoted and affirmed, that like we have good solid evidence, to believe that these persons dwell in the beatific vision in the sight of the Lord, and that they're interceding for us, by his graces. They're working miracles. Not just those saints, but all the many saints that whose names we don't have recorded, we don't pray to on a specific calendar day, because they've run the race well. They've won for them the victor's crown, and they finished. So like the saints that you and I share blood with, that people in our own families who may have like made it out of here, made it out of purgatory, and are now in that dwelling place prepared for them. I would say, to kind of echo your sentiments, there was no way that in my household growing up, no way that any of us could have like done like a spooky costume. That's what was verboten in our household. We were not like doing anything nearly demonic or like scary or horrific or whatever. All of ours were like old-timey movie stars. I went as Hardy once from Laurel and Hardy, the comic troupe, and we did like Wizard of Oz stuff, like very very safe.
You were a wizard? Oh, that is a cult of a cat. Don't tell me you think there's such thing as a good witch.
Yes, well, you know me. I'm
gonna get in trouble.
Harry Potter.
There we go. Mike, sleep on a preach. A little defense of Halloween.
So as you could probably tell, I don't think it's a big deal to do pretend things. I believe in Tolkien's theory of fantasy. If you read On Fairy Stories by him, he has a whole defense of why fantasy is good, and it actually prepares your mind and your heart for a life of faith. So go read Tolkien. Now, I think there are valid concerns about like horror and that sort of thing. And actually, the Awakened Catholic Men show did a whole episode on this, which I was not on, but I think they did a good job with it. I love Halloween just because it's there's been such a breakdown of like communities in America. We're all like so separated and individualized in our own houses, and it's like the one time a year when you get to like see your neighbors and like go out and meet your neighbors and we like share candy as a community. Like I think that's beautiful. Yeah, so I think great, celebrate All Saints. I think that should be a priority. But I mean, Halloween doesn't bother me. Santa Claus bothers me more than Halloween bothers me. So at least we don't tell little kids and try to convince them that the ghouls and the ghosts are real like we do with Santa Claus.
Let's go with that. Wait, real quick.
Sorry.
Sleep on it, preach on it for myself. I'm gonna preach on this. Why do we ride so hard for this Santa Claus? Like, I'm gonna stop doing it, and I'm gonna stop telling this lie. Like, I'm gonna tell them the truth, right? But I don't know how that weighs out in terms of gift giving and what else. But that's fine, whatever. Like,
Yeah, that might have to be another episode. Or sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up.
You brought it out, man. You brought it out.
This is after bedtime.
Just to be said, I don't judge people who do Santa Claus. I don't judge people that don't do Halloween. I don't judge people that you do you. But
the action, you can love the person, but you can just say, "Hey, that ain't going." Ladies and gentlemen, last one. And I saved the best for last, but this is the rule: 60 seconds. That's it.
Okay.
That's it. And we're gonna get in trouble for this too. Everybody got their their long johns in a bunch with Pope Francis's recent words from an interview.
Oh man, we got a minute for this.
Yeah, right? He seemed to be giving a defense towards cohabitation, same-sex relationships, civil unions. I watched the clip. I have the benefit of the privilege of being Hispanic and really hearing him say it. And I listened to other people's breakdowns of it, things that I liked, things that I didn't. It seems like people are really trying hard to get the narrative, like him to fit their narrative.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting. What do you guys think? What should we as a church come away with? What's the take home? Regardless, I mean, we don't, I don't know.
Yeah.
Take home. Okay. Let's go, Father Pat. 60 seconds, go.
Yeah. So first, let me simp hard for Dr. Tim Gray's special address that formed.org put out on this exact thing, a little bit more of a consideration of this topic. I agree with his position, his take. Look, the Holy Father, as far as like official church teaching, had some of the strongest affirmation of what we believe in his encyclical Amoris Laetitia. So go to what the church officially teaches, and remember that many times throughout history, the Holy Father has spoken on a whole host of things that don't constitute the church's teaching. That being said, I think the Holy Father usually is coming from a place of compassion and love, and is in no uncertain terms here advocating for that none of us exclude people from our family circles or our love, that we not stop talking to our cousin who has same-sex attractions, or refuse to show up to Thanksgiving because we know our gay uncle is going to be there. I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Let's go. All right, you knocked that out in 60 seconds, Father Pat. Look at you. Now, someone I know is not going to knock it out in 60 seconds. Professor Tenny Emeritus, go ahead and knock it out.
Just because you made fun of me, I'm going to take a breath. And
take the sip of water for the first 30.
I very much appreciate what Father Pat said. I think the blog Where Peter Is had a great breakdown. If you're into like the nitty gritty of who said what in the interview and where the interview come from and how was it spliced together, like they have a good breakdown of all that. I will say this is not like an official declaration from the Holy Father. This was like in an interview and it was stitched together and it was like 2 years ago, and then they edited it and then put it out. Like this is not something he came out with a few days ago. So it's not even something Francis did really. There's that. I think absolutely it is a affirmation of the dignity of LGBTQ people with same-sex attraction, however you want to talk about it. And that is good. And that is straight out of the catechism, that they are children of God and they are to be loved, and any unjust discrimination is gravely immoral. And so I think that is the context in which to read his comments, is that he's trying to stand up for dignity in a way that people often neglect and abuse people in this way. Now, it's not a change on church teaching on the nature of marriage or any of that. There was a CDF document in 2003 from Cardinal Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict. This was under John Paul II, where it said, we do not approve of civil unions because then that might pave the road for it's kind of an approximation of marriage. Well, here we are 20 years later almost, and Pope Francis is saying like civil unions, as he did when he was a bishop in Argentina, he's saying civil unions might be a way that we could as a church still maintain our teaching on marriage as one man and one woman, but then in our relationships with the government, and through civil law, like respect the dignity of the same-sex couples that are out there and are committed to each other. So I think he's starting the conversation, but he has not changed anything. He has not put anything out, but I think he is saying maybe we need to look at that. And he's the Pope. If he wants to put a new document out under the CDF for, he can. Not that he can change church teaching, but he can change canon law, So
Right. And I think with that, Father Pat, did you have something else to add to that? Are you good? Of course.
I forgot about where Peter is. Like that's a really good treatment. Like that actually breaks down even like how they changed up the order in the documentary. Like it's just completely out of context. So yeah, I'll echo that.
Yeah.
Sure. And how I took it, well, again, Pope can't change revealed truth, right? The reality of the sacrament of marriage coming from natural law, coming from our place as persons, man and woman, right? Complementarity, right? That's not going anywhere. That's not changing.
Right. The theology of the body.
Right. We live in a world, though, where there's another dimension, not another dimension. We live in the world where, civil unions is a thing and where people are being discriminated against. And so how do we minister there? How do we accompany there? We as Catholics should be confident in already the non-negotiables, what we know to be true, right, about the sacrament. But then we have to also, because he touched on it right away, like how we treat each other in the family and what's going on, right? With how LGBTQ plus persons are being treated. So that needs to be addressed, obviously. So he echoed everything from the catechism, I think, and no news. Sorry. No news.
No, but it does bring us back to like even our original discussion about like voting and the election, is that there's something beautiful about the art of disagreeing well, and then with charity, loving somebody, even though, like they're not with me on this, like they don't yet know the name of Jesus Christ or proclaim him to be king. But, it just, this is no different. Like this is absolutely no different as far as like how we respond to one another, despite what we know, like what we disagree about.
All right. And then as we go forward, Mike, man, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
I want you to pitch like pop. I mean, even though we already did it a little bit, but like, where can we find you? Where can we check you out? Tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with Awaken Catholic, because I know you've been with us already. But
so first, just let me say, I like to be a little controversial, and I like to go into the conversations. I don't like having shallow conversations. Like I like talking about stuff. So I shared like who I voted for, and I talked about this stuff. This is all just me talking off the top of my head. And so like if anybody out there is thinking like they're mad or anything like that, or just know that we're three guys having a conversation. We're three faithful Catholics trying to figure all this stuff out. So hopefully our conversation was helpful for you. AwakenCatholic.org is a new Catholic nonprofit. It's run out of the Diocese of Toledo, Ohio. And Pop Culture Catechism, my show, comes out every 2 weeks. We do mostly music, but we also do TV shows and video games. We've done Taylor Swift, we did WAP, we did Ed Sheeran. We're going to do some old school stuff. We're going to do Bruce Springsteen coming up. We're going to do some TV shows, some video games. So I'm really excited about it. I love it. And some guests that you'll probably recognize are coming on the show next time. So
the secret in terms of video games? I mean, I'm not much of a gamer, but I don't know.
We're doing God of War.
Interesting.
So,
wow.
Yeah. We're doing God of War.
Nice.
I'll give you a hint. My guest is a Catholic speaker who for Halloween was God of War, and his son was his son. Like there's a son in the video game. And so he was the dad. He was the dad. So anyway.
Wow.
He's in that. They're out there. And if you're from the, there'll be some some faces that are familiar to the Holy Ruckus audience. So
yes, one day. Father Pat, anything as we close? Anything?
A heartfelt thanks to Mike, especially for what you do, what both of you guys do in your vocations as dads, but also for continuing to lead us, Josh, and continuing to write for Holy Ruckus, in addition to everything else that you're doing with Awakened Catholic. I will give a huge shout out, not only to our Patreon supporters. I'm very grateful that you're endorsing this great avenue of evangelization. But I'll also shout out any St. Joseph's parishioners who may be approaching their bedtimes, who have joined us this Friday night. Thanks for joining us tonight, and I'll be seeing you Sunday morning.
We'll be tucking you in soon. Gentlemen, you've been rocking with the best, the Holy Ruckus podcast, your favorite podcast. You already know what to do. www.theholyruckus.com for podcast, blogs, and videos. We're on YouTube, Spotify. We got a network of podcasts. Father Bob Kilner's podcast right now, Here to Heaven, is killing it. I love Father Bob Kilner, and he's awesome. He's from the
great.
Washington. And so, yes, Here to Heaven, something to check out, as well as the One-to-One podcast with Kevin Wells, author of The Priest We Need to Save the Church, and Father Dan Leary. And then we got, of course, the old faithful. You've always stayed faithful to us, listeners, all 7 of you, the Holy Ruckus podcast. You already know. Give us a like, give us a share, 5-star review, the whole thing. But most importantly of all, give us that money. Patreon.com. Why?
Your reward will be great in heaven.
Your reward will be great in heaven. That's facts. But because we can't do this without your support, without your prayers, and without your monetary support. Because what that does, ladies and gentlemen, it allows for us to go out and find awesome graphic designers, awesome web developers, and bloggers. Man, we want to get some folks on the payroll. We want to get awesome content, quality content. Hey, but if not, just share us. If you don't got no bread, no monies, that's fine. No ducats, that's fine. Share
Josh
us.
just had a baby, people. Pay up.
All we got to do. Heck yeah, this is subtle. Mike, you already know what to do. Put them digits. Ladies and gentlemen, but on the real, just share it. Just share it. If you feel called, rock it out. But thank you so much again for listening. Father Pat, give us a blessing for free. Give us a free blessing.
Oh, nice. Yes. The Lord bless you and keep you. His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you with kindness and grant you peace. And may Almighty God bless you this day, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Peace be with you. God bless everybody.
With your spirit. Thanks so much.
Amen. Peace.
Don't worry about the aftermath, folks. Jesus still king.
His peace is with you. Amen.
Right. Stay now.